Hey everyone, Dan here from the Progress Campaign, doing an impromptu live to talk about some of the changes that have come out of our updated forecast. As you know, the model was frozen over the past 24 hours. We ran through all the early vote data, we ran through final organizing data, we ran through final phone banking data that we've gotten. We adjusted some of the models around voter registration data in states where there is same-day registration. We've seen some enthusiasm drops among younger voters in particular who have not registered and used that sort of last-minute mechanism to get registered and to vote. So that lowered some vote totals in a bunch of states which have same-day registration, which we expected a certain number of voters to vote. And we're gonna do a brief overview and then take some of your all's questions. So if we can get a shared screen here for a minute and yeah, whenever you're set. Okay. Hopefully that'll do it. Right. Okay. So as you can see, right now, Joe Biden's chances of winning, he is very likely to win the Electoral College. His odds jumped up from 89.2 to 89.6. Trump dropped from 10.6, 10.8 to 10.4. This was driven mostly by some of the Midwestern states like Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania moving a little bit more into his column, more solidly into. And one of the big changes that we've made is actually updated turnout. So even our wildest expectations originally, which was about 143 to 147 million, was topped, and now we project there to be about 150, just under 150 million, 150 million and 73,000 or so votes across the country. That was mostly driven by California, Texas, and Florida. Not many other states have had such a high increase in turnout compared to what we thought. And you can see that in these individual states. Now, one thing to note is that we did not update, the model is updating the maps as we go. That's what it's doing in the background. So the maps are going to take a few more, probably another hour or so until they all get updated, but all the data is there. So as you can tell in Texas, a really big surge compared to 2016. Joe Biden is expected to get about 5.5 million votes compared to Donald Trump's 5.4 million. One of the interesting, surprising outcomes is that last time is that Collin County flipped and is now expected. Now Joe Biden is expected to win it, and this update is, again, these numbers are not reflective yet. But one thing is that Denton, the neighboring county, actually came very, very close in this update. We've got some new data out of Denton County from local organizations running there, and we were able to upgrade, to update some of that data, which was pretty interesting. So overall, again, just a reminder, this is well within the margin of error. This, is definitely one of our more outlandish calls. Or projections. It gets a lot more attention than the other states. But another key race to watch here on election day is going to be the Texas House, which right now we moved into a Democratic pickup of anywhere from 1 to 3 seats, a 1 to 3 seat majority. So that's something which we're going to look at. Later on. And besides that, we did see an overall increase in turnout. As we said, we're expecting about just over 150 million people to show up for the election. One thing which we don't really explain in our methodology too much, but we do have a certain amount of undecided voters which are not distributed. And these are low propensity undecided voters, meaning folks that if they show up, we don't quite know how they'll be distributed. These are mostly anti-establishment change voters, which are a lot more populist. which were, even if they're pretty progressive, then they're populist. Even if they're even conservative, then they show up for these change elections. So we have about anywhere from 2.5 to 5 million of these voters, which are sort of in limbo in the forecast right now. These are divided by state, county, and precinct, as our entire forecast is, which you can see right now. Joe Biden's expected to get about 77 million votes, a big jump compared to 2016, and this is going to be the highest vote total a Democrat has ever received. And Donald Trump with 65.6 million, I believe, also as well, the highest vote totals that he has seen. And one thing that is noteworthy is that there is going to be a big growth, a natural population growth. There's going to be a 2016 third-party voters moving into his favor. But overall, he is expected to lose a lot of ground in the suburbs. So if you're looking at this and you're saying, hey, how come Joe Biden's got 12 million more votes than Hillary Clinton did in 2016, but Donald Trump only has about 3 million more? That's the reason why. He's losing a lot of voters in the suburbs, as well as we do expect him to lose quite a bit of those change election voters, folks like change elections. Like, we'll talk a little bit more with Sean from Plural Vote about tomorrow. In Pennsylvania, for example, is a big state where there are about 250 to 350,000 of these anti-establishment, economy-only driven voters who only show up when it's a big change election. So these are the types of voters that showed up for Trump in 2016, but we're not expecting to show up in this election. And third-party voters, we have it pegged at 3.4%. Again, that's it is quite high, but again, most of these third-party voters, what we're estimating, are write-in voters. And you can, if you go to the bottom of our forecast, you can see this, which was pretty interesting given the fact that, we don't really know what the scope of this is going to be yet. But a big example here is Utah, where we do have some organizing on the ground, which shows that there's actually it's going to be quite big, a write-in campaign for Mitt Romney for president in Utah. Again, we have this pegged at about 6% of the total vote there. It could end up being 4%. It could end up being 12 or 13% from some of the data that we've seen, but we sort of try to average that out as much as we can to avoid these lopsided speculation. And obviously, a Mitt Romney write-in campaign is going to be from the slightly more conservative Mormons who are not necessarily going to be in the Biden column, but also can't bring themselves to vote for Donald Trump. And as you can see, Joe Biden is expected to win by about 7.8%. Obviously, lower than some of the polls, but at the end of the day, that's where we see the race right now. We don't think, obviously, if that can go up to as much as 10 or 11, but for the most part, that if you start looking at those types of numbers, you're basically seeing a massive surge of younger voters, which will obviously help some other states. Excuse me, but does come primarily from states like California and New York, where you can have a potential of another million or so in New York and California independently showing up to vote. One of the interesting things, so right now our almost final projection has Joe Biden winning 389 electoral votes and Donald Trump winning 149. But it is worth noting, as we've seen before, a lot of these states which are very light, like Ohio, Iowa, Texas, Georgia, Florida, and North Carolina, are considered toss-ups by any stretch of the imagination, but we just remove those to give a better sense of a final projection. So, we could end up after Election Day with Biden winning Iowa and Ohio, as well as the 4 states he's forecast to win, and we could end up after election night where Trump wins all these states, or even flipping in the combination, right? Biden can end up doing a lot better with white working class voters and winning Ohio. He can do a lot better with younger voters and win Iowa, but then not quite reach the milestone he needs to win Texas or North Carolina. So we can see that happening. So one of the last things I'm going to touch upon before getting to questions is the change over time. And obviously the way we do our models it was a little bit different than sort of a generic polling average. So as you can see, the more data we've gotten, the better we were able to distribute these undecided voters, distribute 2016 third-party voters and current third-party voters, and given the fact that a lot of, over the course of this election, there's been a lot of states where the Green Party's been off the ballot. There's a lot of states where they're like Minnesota, where Kanye West, as an example, is doing a bit better than what we've expected. He's polling at about 2.5% in some of the polls. So as you can tell, the model was pretty much static throughout the entire primary. And once Bernie Sanders drops out and Joe Biden became the nominee, those voters started getting distributed. And his odds of winning were about 70% throughout the primary, and they're ending up at just shy of 90%. We do not expect that number to change even on election day. We're going to get a lot of vote on election day. We have started sending out from 6 a.m. this morning until until the last poll close at midnight. We're going to send out about our system and our models are sending out about 1 million text messages to all the folks we've been surveying and talking to all across the country. We're not expecting to get 1 million back, but we're expecting to get a lot of data that's going to help us in our election day models and try to run this for the last time. But we're not expecting that. We're not. This is pretty much the final model for this election, and obviously, at 6 p.m. Eastern, the model will be frozen until the end of time, and it'll be up there, and and for our post-mortem after the election, and we're not going to change much. A better way to look at the Electoral College Map is by the size of the electoral votes, which you can obviously see Joe Biden's advantage here. And then if you scroll down again, you're going to see the final allocation of third-party votes, as you can see. Besides West Virginia and Vermont, where we still expect there to be quite a bit of a write-in campaign for Bernie Sanders because it's considered a safe Democratic state. No one's worried about tipping that. As we said, Utah, we're expecting about 7.5% of the vote to be for third parties. Idaho as well, Wyoming. Those are big sort of either anti-establishment or Mormon states, which can't bring themselves to vote for either one of the major candidates right now. So we are going to get to some of the questions here in a minute. But before we do that, we just want to let everyone know about our, let's see if we can get it up here, about our election day page. Now, obviously, we're not the results we're getting are precinct by precincts, and we just did not have the resources because of a couple of folks on our data team got sick, got COVID, and we're not able to they're all okay, ended up being okay. But we're not able to put a lot of the work into building an actual page which can present these results as they come in. But all the results will be going through our model, and then we're going to have some specific outputs. As you can see at the top, we have from the left to right, it is 89.6% chance that Joe Biden will win the presidential election, 78.2% or 78.1%. It's sort of jiggling in between there as the model continues to process that incoming data. The Democrats will win control of the U.S. Senate, and then there's a 98.2% chance the Democrats win control of the House of Representatives. And we're going to have two separate maps here. First of all, projected vote totals is going to change as votes come in, and as we match that to what we've expected to come in on election day. And we're going to have two sets of maps. The first one is just the calls that we're going to be able to make. So these are either calls that we make, or if there's going to be another news organization which makes the call before us, we're going to adapt that. We trust those decision desks fully, obviously, as a lot of people are doing, and we're going to update those maps as they come in. The second map, though, is including states which we already know who's going to be the winner. These are the states that we are going to be projecting right when polls close, and this will give us a better sense of who's crossing that 270 mark to be declared the winner. So obviously, it's not like in 2008, for example, most of the networks waited for California, Washington, and Oregon and Hawaii to come in to declare Obama the winner, even though he won well before that. And then in 2012, they did a little different, and they included those. So You can be able to see the states that we've projected as is after polls close. But we've also used this feature to allow you to see how it's going in conjunction with what we are expecting to call right as the polls close. Obviously, this map is going to get updated as we get back our returns from exit polls, both from networks and, like we said, those roughly million text messages that we're going to be sending out that we've already been sending out all the way through election day to get our versions of the exit polls. Second part is going to be the U.S. Senate. And again, over here, there are 35 Democratic seats, which are uncontested, 30 Republican. And we're going to have these projections to see who crosses the 50 or 51, which is needed to win. In case the presidency moves over 95%, then that'll change to 50. And then at the bottom, again, we see the projecting the winner with states that we project the margin of victory to be over 10%, meaning these are states which we expect right now to call right when the polls close. This is also us or Decision Desk HQ or the AP or any one of the decision desks all across the country. So again, there's 45, that adds another 10 for Democrats, another 10 for Republicans. And, once Democrats or Republicans cross that 50th or 51st needed to win, we'll be able to call that race. What we do not have included in this is going to be projections for the U.S. House. We're not going to do any of that. You can go over to the New York Times page, DDHQ, Decision Desk HQ. But we are going to be projecting state legislature gains as a whole, so as chambers. So if Democrats are expected, for example, to pick up the Minnesota State Senate, we're going to be able to project that as data comes in. And we're also going to be looking at the Texas House, Arizona House and Senate, Iowa House and Senate, Pennsylvania House, Michigan House. There are various chambers that Democrats can gain control and are very important for redistricting. And that's probably going to be one of the main focuses of the night, given the fact that the presidential race might still be too close to call on election day, or too early to call, on election day as we wait for all these mail-in ballots to come in. So we're going to get into questions, and hopefully we could, we've got a bunch of questions on social media, and we can get to them. If anyone has questions, you can ask them in the bottom of the comment section, and I'll do my best to get to them. Obviously, we're not going to make this too long. It's getting late in a lot of areas, and we still got about 24 hours or so of work to do before election day. So Nostra Thomas, president of Thailand, asks, I think your total vote predictions for Texas is about 1 million too low. Agree with other predictions, though. So our Texas predictions are a little lower than what some people expect. We have, I think, about 11.3 million voters we expect to show up, and some pundits or some handicappers are expecting about 12 million. The reason for that right now is that we're not seeing evidence of higher than expected growth for Trump. We're not seeing very large margins in the rural eastern portions of the state, which are slightly more populated. We're not seeing large increase in population growth among Republican suburbanites. Obviously, we've seen quite a big increase. We expect him to get about 300,000 or so more votes than he did in 2016. About 500,000 or 600,000 more voters than he got in 2016. So that's quite a lot. But the reason why we're short in 1 million is probably just because we do not believe that he's going to be able to, we don't think he'll be able to bring out 1.5 million more voters than he did in 2016. There's just not realistic enough, and that's not the population growth trajectory. As well as we did have to lowball a little bit turnout in El Paso for Democrats because COVID is really hurting their communities there. And obviously, Beto O'Rourke's going back to El Paso. I think he's still driving there. He's hopefully to try to help folks get out on election day, but that's going to be pretty tough for Democrats. So we lowball that a little bit, as well as some areas in Houston. Where we will have to wait for election day, data to come in from how long the lines are, what Secretary of State releases or county clerks actually release some data about how much they expect to show up on election day. So right now we have, I think, about 1.7 million or so projected to show up on election day. If we have an indication that it's 2.7 million, we'll add that, and it'll adjust it before 6 p.m. Eastern. But so far, we do not expect to think that million votes short is justified right now. Let me try to get to other questions here. Did you update with the new Seltzer poll? So right now, Iowa is updated with the new Seltzer poll. It didn't do much because it got drowned out by a lot of other polls. We do consider it to be a gold standard poll, and it's going to stay that way. But we just it did get drowned out, and there's not enough data to support a 7-point win for Donald Trump right now. There's the entire region there has moved 7 to 12%. The entire Michigan, Wisconsin, Minnesota, Iowa, Nebraska area. So there's just very little indication to show that Iowa only moved 2%, especially given the fact that one of the main hurdles in 2016 was the fact that that folks just didn't show up for Hillary Clinton or voted third party. It wasn't that, it wasn't we're not only talking about the folks that moved over for voting from Obama to voting for Trump. We're talking about these voters that just didn't show up, and we are expecting a bunch of them to show up this time, as well as the fact that we do expect a big shift from Trump 2016 voters back to Biden in 2020 voters. I don't see any other. Delaware Lee asked, winning Texas but not Iowa or Ohio. Yes, that's actually an important thing. I think I touched upon it a little bit earlier, but another thing to remember is that these are well within the margin of error. So, we're not expecting any one of those states to go by more than 1%. I think by less than 0.5% in each one of them. And Ohio is just ridiculously close. So, we definitely could end up an election night with Trump winning all three. We can end up with Biden winning all three, depending on how that goes. And we're going to have a little bit more of an insight, but yeah, we do still see the fact that Obama did not win Ohio by a lot in 2012, and we are expecting well over 50% of those white working class voters that went from Obama to Trump in 2016 to stay with Trump, and that's just not there just isn't enough growth in certain areas like around Cincinnati and Columbus to overcome that, given the fact that right now we're just not seeing the indication that young African-American voters around Cleveland are showing up at the same levels that they did in 2008 and 2012. So at the end of the day, if that actually does materialize and we do see 2008 percentage level of turnout in Cuyahoga County, which is Cleveland, then he'll probably win Ohio. But other than that, this sort of a lot of the white working class areas are just going to stay with Trump, right? We know this on the left and on the right. If once whatever propels you to move from one party to another, from one political ideology to another, you get trapped in the media bubble right after you get there, and it's pretty hard to leave. So, a lot of people have moved over from watching MSNBC or watching nothing to moving over to Fox News, and all that sort of media bubble. The same way, a lot of suburbanites are moving from watching Fox News to watching CNN or MSNBC, then they sort of get trapped in there for a few decades. So, we're not expecting to see 2012 level support of white working class voters with Biden, and that's really what it takes to win a state like Ohio. And Iowa is a little more about young voters. And what was surprising, I think we talked about this a little bit, our data team posted something on social media a while ago about the fact that it's pretty odd that the Biden campaign didn't dispatch Mayor Pete or Bernie Sanders to Iowa. That's definitely, especially given that there's a Senate race there, and probably even more importantly, the Democrats have a chance of picking up the state house, and that's a big deal considering that we both have redistricting. and in 2022, hopefully, not going to. Hopefully, we'll have a good candidate to capture the governor's mansion there, and to be able to actually give them a way to legislate. So that's also kind of peculiar, because it's mostly these younger voters who are just who showed up in 2008 and 2012, but are just not showing up now. So that's really the reason why things are going in Iowa. And as we talked about in Texas, it's just this massive surge of new Democratic voters and enthusiasm among the state. Like Beto O'Rourke likes to say, it wasn't a red state, it was a non-voting state, and a lot of those folks are voting. So that's really where why Texas is going a little bit over there. So that's it. We're going to sign off now, but we are going to have a full day tomorrow. We're actually going to, starting at noon, we're going to be talking to a whole bunch of candidates, a whole bunch of lawmakers. We're going to restream our Georgia Get Out the Vote event. You can hear from a bunch of folks running for the Texas State House that we're going to talk to. A bunch of folks running for Congress all across the country, like in Ohio and Kansas and different areas. And we're also going to be talking to Sean from Plural Vote. We're going to be talking the founder of Plural Vote. We're going to be talking to Robert from Lean Toss Up, and hopefully Jack from JHK Forecasts throughout the day, trying to sort of gauge and give you our best opinions as forecasters and organizers, trying to sort of see how this election day is going. And starting at 7 p.m., we are going to be turning our social media account in Twitter, if you want to follow, and we're going to be releasing our projections. And again, we're going to label these as projections. These are not official calls about who won, but it's just a projection based on our model. Because we've run precinct level models, we actually are feeding all the incoming data through the model and reworking a lot of it. So it'll give us a good sense, and you can follow along on Our Progress HQ, at Our Progress HQ on Twitter, and we're going to be doing a bunch of calls there. And obviously, hopefully we can get to talk to folks in campaigns and lawmakers and candidates from all across the country to see how election day is going. So we hope to see you then, and we hope I answered some of your questions. And as we said, the maps are going to start being updated over the next half hour or so, and you can dive into that tonight, because I know that we're not sleeping tonight, but probably a lot of people staying up and are anxious, so they can do that. Sifting through all of our forecasts and our pages and our interactive county maps, as well as we just released. I just a few days ago did a podcast with Blue Collar Convos. We linked to it on our social media as well. You can head over there and listen to that if while doing other things or trying to get distracted from the election, listening about the election. So thank you all for tuning in, and happy election day.
My dear friends, your vote is precious, almost sacred. It is the most powerful non-violent tool we have to create a more perfect union.